Dans son travail, Peter Heller traite aussi des questions de société et il parle beaucoup d'art, de paysage, de nature, etc. Et toutes ces questions-là, on les retrouve au sein de l'exposition. Alors ensuite, comme je vous le disais, il y avait ces bibliothèques idéales que nous présentons à chaque temps d'exposition. Et il se trouve que nous avons voulu travailler avec la librairie L'Intranquille et notamment avec l'un des libraires qui est Bruno Bachelier. Et nous lui avons demandé de venir régulièrement, moins une fois par exposition, pour justement parler en public d'un choix d'œuvres, d'ouvrages qu'il va lui-même opérer au sein de la bibliothèque idéale du FRAC. Donc voilà, on commençait à tisser ce partenariat avec l'Intranquille. Et puis il nous a proposé, et ça tombait à merveille, la venue de Peter Heller qui a fait la visite de l'exposition et qui, je crois, a apprécié l'exposition et a retrouvé des choses qui lui tenaient à cœur.
You traveled around the world, so many places, and had many jobs. Now that you're 60, what are your next plans about writing and everything?
What I'm looking forward to most is stretching creatively in my next novel. My biggest adventures are now in literature, and so I can't wait to start the next novel. I have an idea, and as soon as I go home, I begin.
What part of personal life and travel memories can we find in your books?
So all my books tend to be, I start with a first line, and I came up as a poet, and so I'm very interested in the music of the language, and I start with the music of the first line, how it sounds. And I follow the cadence of the music into the next line and the next, so I follow the music into the story. So I never know what's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be about when I sit down to start to write, usually. So what I usually discover is that after a few pages, the characters are like people that I know, or they're like me. And the stories have a lot of details that are from my own life. When you go on expeditions, you see character under pressure. You see people under a lot of pressure, life or death. It's very interesting, and it ends up being very good for stories later on. Yeah, you collect a lot of stories.
By the way, your last book is based on your mother, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us why?
So my mother died 4 years ago. I was so heartbroken that I think I started with the first line, and it was the story of a young girl who was put in her own apartment when she was 8 years old by a mean stepmother. And so I thought this novel was going to be about this girl. But within a few pages, she contacted a private detective to try and find her father, and the private detective was my mother. She really was. And so what I realized was that I really wanted to write a book about my mom. And it was so great because I got to spend a year after my mother died just hanging out with my mother. And I learned so much about her. Isn't that funny? When I was writing it.
So we can see also you're very committed to environments.
I was an adventure writer. I went on a lot of expeditions around the world. And as I traveled, I could see that very clearly that the ecosphere was unraveling, that the world was coming apart. I could see it. And I thought, you can't just write adventure stories. You have to take responsibility. So I wrote more and more environmental stories to try and do something with my voice for all the animals and plants that didn't have a voice. And so I feel like it's very important to take responsibility, yeah.
And so is it your first time here in Besançon? And what do you think about our city?
Oh, second time.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I had one of the most fun evenings of my life with Bruno from the bookstore and some local friends. We had one of the best evenings I've ever had in my life just down the street.
Okay.
And my wife and I walked to the Citadel. We had the best fondue I've ever had. Walked along the river. It's a wonderful town. Yeah, it's great to be here.
And finally, we're here in the FRAC, so which is the Fonds Régional d'Art Contemporain. You have a special relation with art?
Yes. So my mother was a serious artist. She was a private eye, a private detective, but she was also a very serious artist, sculptor. My grandmother was a painter and a sculptor. And two of my best friends are painters. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with a lot of art. And I think there's a strong relationship between art and writing.
Yes.
They're analogous, how this process unfolds. My great friend Jim Wagner, who is the protagonist in The Painter, is based on Jim Wagner, who's a friend of mine. He approaches the canvas the same way that I write. Like I said that I start with the first line and I don't know. He makes a palette according to his mood, and then he has no idea what he's going to paint. He just starts painting. And it's a fun analogy.
Yes. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in France.
So honored to be here. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.